Hey guys, Dan Goyette here. Welcome to another episode of the Hypno World News Podcast. I almost said something else. So we are on today. I'm not sure what was up with the intro there, but we're going to soldier on. So today we are talking about events and travel. I was asked this question again the other day. Dan, how do you go to so many conferences and events throughout the year, and what's the cost on that? So I thought, you know what, why don't we take a look at that? And as always, before we begin, today's broadcast is being brought to you by the Michigan Hypnotherapy Guild and Hypno World Magazine. Be sure to scan the QR code to subscribe to Hypno World Magazine to be in the know about all the things happening in the world of hypnosis and the people making it happen. So, and speaking of that, we're going to bring one of those great guys on here just in a moment. The amazing Judge Mentalist, Joe Beth Bowers. There he is.
Good morning. Good morning, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I had a lot of static there with the intro. I'm not sure what that was about.
Yeah, I was expecting some sort of music or something. It just sounded like very fitting, because to me, at least what was coming through to me sounded like that, when it's quiet in the cabin of an airplane, but is flying. So I just thought that's what we were doing. We were on brand for the day. We were on theme to what we're talking about here today.
I think so. This is your captain speaking. So, yeah. But anyways, so yeah, one of the things that I always get asked is, Dan, how do you go to all these conferences all the time? Because the people are like, oh, you go to Heartland and Hypnothoughts, and you went to the Irish Hypnosis, and you went to this one, and you went to that one, and how do you do it? And what are those numbers looking like? And what is travel going to look like in the future? And that's something we have to worry about. I know that we're clinical hypnotherapists and we're stage hypnotists and we're really more, what's happening in the world of hypnosis. But this is part of it because we're entrepreneurs, we're business people, and we have to look at cost analysis and reward, if you will. So one of the great things that I like to talk about, and we were just talking about this, is AI pricing. And you were mentioning Southwest, so I'm going to let you go with that, Joe Beth.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that especially, and for anybody who doesn't know, I'm a stage hypnotist. I don't do anything clinically, although I am in the process of a certification. It's not my intent to hold myself out as a clinical hypnotherapist. So everything that I'm going to say here is coming from that entertainment background. And, ultimately the ideal, the dream is that each of these contracts that you're doing includes the cost or the flights and the travel and the lodging. But when you're getting started, when you don't have a big name, when you don't have a huge following, when you don't have people knocking down your door to book you, you're not necessarily going to get that right away. So a lot of times you have to make sure, or at least not itemized on, you may have a price that price includes, but is not specifically delineated for your travel and lodging. So when that's the case, obviously things that make prices fluctuate, that make costs associated with it all fluctuate, you've got to make sure that you're planning that in, because getting paid $2,500 for a gig isn't getting paid $2,500 for a gig if you've got to spend $800 to $1,000 of that getting yourself there and back, hotel, and other costs that a lot of times that we forget about. Like if you're parking your car at the airport, there's a cost associated with that. Are you flying with an airline? You asked me about Southwest, who used to be my default. This is who I'm booking with carrier, is as long as they're flying into and out of the cities that I'm going to. That's starting to change. They're still probably my default, but one of the things that's important, less important for stage hypnotists in certain situations than if you are, a magician and a mentalist with a whole bunch of props, but are you paying for bags? Southwest just changed their policy. They used to be the carrier, the airline where 2 bags under 50 pounds fly for free. That's no longer the case. There are some workarounds. Status, I fly enough that I have their A list. So anytime, even with the policy change, that I book a flight on Southwest, I get a bag for free, but just one now, not two. If you have their credit card, which if you are in a situation, and I'm going to give this advice kind of across the board and globally for any of this type of travel, that if you are booking your own flights, even if they're being reimbursed by the buyer or the booker or whatever you want to call them, figure out which airlines work best for you. And it's probably not going to be based on where you're going as much as where you're flying from and what that airport, what airlines are a hub in that airport. So for me, I sit equidistant between Baltimore and Philadelphia. So I actually am lucky enough to have two choices if I want to go through that hub airline. Baltimore is a hub for Southwest. Philadelphia's airport is a hub for American. So I get to check both and, take it from there. So get the credit card and a business credit card, because you are, even if you're part-time,
Oh
you're a
yeah.
business, you're a professional, you can write this stuff off, but you're going to begin to accrue purchase or points from not just the purchases of these flights, but your lodging, your meals when you're on the road. And a lot of these, you kind of have to, if you really want to do this right, you really want to dig into what perks are there. Are there certain hotels and certain ways to book those hotels that you're going to get even more points using that airline's credit card? Even if you're not using those points to book future business travel, great. You're getting free personal travel from an expense that you were going to take on anyway. You have to get to that gig. So
Yeah.
you might as well get something a little extra for it if you can, even if that's long term, even if you're getting a free round trip flight every year, it's still a freebie for you. So take advantage of it. Those things generally don't make the cost any higher. It's built into the price, basically.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. If you've got those statuses, because the expenses on the Southwest credit card will go toward that status that gets me, a guaranteed free bag every flight. Also, for now, and this is touch and go, Southwest people, I also earn something called a companion pass. Once you hit a certain number of flights and or cost in a year, this companion pass lets somebody, and you have to designate who this person is. So it's not like, hey, I'm going to take my wife this week and Dan Goyette next week and Richard Cole, good morning, Richard Cole, take him on another flight. You have to designate who this person is. And you can only change this person 3 times per year. But anytime that for now, that I book a flight on Southwest, for example, my flight coming to the upcoming Michigan International Hypnosis Conference in September is on Southwest. It's a short, easy, direct flight from Baltimore to Detroit and back. When I book this flight, I have the option to just click a button and say add companion. Southwest already knows who my companion is. As of today, the plan is that my wife comes with me to this conference.
Awesome.
And what that really means is 2 bags, one for me and one for her. You have to pay the taxes and fees, but when have you ever paid $11.40 for a round trip flight? Well, the Southwest Companion Pass is when you're doing it. So, when you end up getting booked to do a mentalism show and you have to bring twice as much gear as you were originally planning to attend a conference, that bag's helpful. So, that's usually what I do. I try to limit my flights to those 2 airlines. I have credit cards for both of them. I have business credit cards for both of them. And I'm just being cognizant. The other thing, that not only are you getting points if you're using the business credit card to book all of, your hotel and your food when you're on the ground, any other incidental costs that you might have. Let's say that you have a microphone that just fizzles out and you're
Oh
on the
yeah.
road. So you hop into a Guitar Center or whatever might be there, buy that replacement on your business credit card, because it's going to do 2 things, not just the points that we've been talking about, but also when you give this stuff to your bookkeeper, your accountant, or otherwise at the end of the year, it's all nice, neat, and organized, all in one place or one series of statements. Hey, here's the American one. Here's the Southwest one. Maybe you're a Delta person. It doesn't matter. I know that you fly Delta a lot. United.
Yeah, I do.
Those are the major carriers. And I will tell you that, we're recording this, we're streaming this on Monday, July 28th. So we're giving you information that's good on Monday, July 28th. It is a Russian roulette of what are these airlines going to do to us next. So if we had this conversation a year ago, I would have been, hey, I am Southwest all the way, baby. Would only use American if I was flying internationally.
Oh,
because
hey,
there aren't a whole lot of destinations that Southwest travels outside of the Caribbean when it comes to international. So here we are, a year from when I would have been a glowing endorsement for Southwest to be like, yeah, they're one of the two I choose between. So
and here's Grant Saunders. So I'm going to bring him in. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Brian.
Oh, no worries.
I said Brian. You're not Brian.
I know a few Brians. That's good enough.
So
right?
do I too. So, and here is our amazing Grant Saunders.
Oh, yes.
So and I talked to Grant, and I sent Grant some numbers. So I'm going to get into some numbers right here because you guys both travel internationally. Mm-hmm. You're both stage hypnotists. You're both entertainers. And I went on, and Grant will be so proud of me. Well, there's no real place to get this kind of information. In the past, in history, when I was working on presentations, I would often hire a research librarian. About 4 or 5 times in my life, I've hired a research librarian, and I didn't have time to do that. So, Grant, just for you, I went on to ChatGPT.
Oh.
So, and you know what? It might be, now that I've been doing this, it might be a go-to place for me for research.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and
although always take into account, ChatGPT does lie. It's like an apprentice that sometimes makes up what it wants to give you. So you've always got to double check it. But my life is made so much easier by ChatGPT.
So I'm using more and more AI tools because, as a good friend of ours said, you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by the guy using AI. It says here that
saying that to my wife.
I know. While there is no per se,
it could take me about 10 minutes, Grant, to just fully process that, but the wheels are turning.
While there's no real summary as to this, no official summary to this, or research that it could find, or guidelines, I kind of made the prompt to make sure that I got as much accurate information as I could. And some of this that came out of ChatGPT, full transparency, it actually says that this is anecdotal and it's been educated guess. So the number, it says here, I estimated the annual travel costs for stage hypnotists, and that the number can vary dependingly on how active the stage hypnotist is, the size of their market, how far they're going to travel, gigs, all these things. And some of the key factors it came up with were one, number of shows a year. Some do 20 to 40, others 80 and 150 plus. So travel types were driving and regional, international flights, hotels. Per show travel costs, including gas, airfare, hotels, meals, baggage, equipment fees, as you were just talking about, Joe Beth. Part-time hypnotist, 20 to 40 shows. I don't know if that's accurate. So I think it might be accurate. That's about what I did when I was doing stage hypnosis. I think about 20 to 25 shows a year for me, which I'm going to say contingent. I was a contingent stage hypnotist. So gas and tolls, part-time hypnotist driving, gas and tolls could come up to about $2,000 to $5,000. Hotels needing a stay, 2,000 to 4,000 within a year. Meals, incidentals, 1,500 to 3,000. So totals of about $5,500 to $12,000 per year just on that part time. And then I'm going to ask you if that sounds right to you guys.
It's a weird one because there's so many variations in it as well. So it's like sometimes you can think, you know what, I can save money by driving to a venue rather than flying to a venue. And yes, it may be cheaper on the actual outlay first initial cost, but then you got to take into consideration the time frame that it's going to take. And not just that, if it takes you 5-6 hours to drive to a gig, you do the gig and then 5-6 hours back. There's the kind of the physical toll that takes on your body the next day. As I got busier and started doing more shows, that's great. But as I'm getting older, the time that it takes for me to kind of recover from that travel time as well is so much greater than it ever was. And quite recently I was ill just from the exhaustion of just, you wear that as a badge of honor of just doing like 150, 200 shows. But the time that takes up afterwards, and what I also find is when you are tired and you are on the road a lot, your ability to make healthy choices for food and for purchases kind of goes out the window. So you think, do you know what? I'm busy. I'm on the road. I'm doing shows. I've just done this. I'll treat myself to that Gucci tie at the airport. I'll treat myself to that. I've done it. I've bought a Gucci tie at the airport when I'm tired, and in my mind reconciled it because I've worked really hard. And sometimes it's planning way in advance can bring those costs down, but having that discipline as well.
Yeah. And I want to ask about this real quick, because it actually talked about the full-time regional national hypnotist, which I think both of you guys are doing. It says here doing anywhere from 60 to 120 plus shows. They got the airfare, car rentals, hotels, 4 nights a week if you're at a hotel, meals, incidentals, Gucci ties, at the airport. And it says the total for that travel can range to $20,000 to $40,000 a year outlay. So as an entrepreneur, and you're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, how do we handle that? I mean, and I have to ask, when you guys book a show and you give them a price, I mean, are you adding in the airfare for that? Or, I mean, I know some hypnotists have done that. So, and is that viable?
I think you've got to. At the end of the day, we're running a business. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes, like visiting conferences, that's an expense with not the same amount of return. But when you're doing a show and when you're a professional doing shows, then you've got to make sure that your expenses are part of that, because otherwise you do end up like, oh, I'm doing this amount of shows a year, but you're not making any money. So that's not a business. That's a hobby. Now, if you've got something else to subsidize that, that's great. But, and again, it is forward planning. If you can manage to get a couple of shows within a similar area and you can piggyback them, that's great. But, I have agents that have really ridiculous senses of humor. So I can be opposite ends of the country at different nights, if you know what I mean. So that if I don't take into account the travel costs for that, I am working for nothing. And so you've got to, but then you've also got shows that you really want to do. So I do a show up in Inverness every couple of years. It's every 2 years I do the show. It's one of my favorite shows to do. I make absolutely no money on it whatsoever because of the travel cost, the hotel cost, because it's a festival and I don't really want to sleep in a tent. They call me princess for a reason. I want to stay in a nice hotel. I still want to travel to the place, and I'll take time out. So I'm not doing a show either side of that one because I want to do that one and I get assets from it, i.e. good video footage, good photos from the show, all of that stuff. I can reconcile that. But day-to-day bread and butter shows, you've got to get your travel expenses in there because otherwise it's just a hobby. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. No, I can't speak to that because I stayed in my wheelhouse. I rarely I don't think I left Michigan once to do one show, and that was Chicago. So I mean, I drove an extra 40 minutes out of my way. I do miss the Abductor 10,000 though. That was the van that we loaded all the equipment into. It was a big Econoline. It was red. We bought it used. Some carpet company had it before us. There were no windows. It's just this big red Econoline 2010 panel van, and we nicknamed it the Abductor 10,000. Like want some candy. But so yeah, Joe Beth, how about you? Before we move on to another part of this, do you do similar things when you're doing a mentalism show? I know you're just starting to do stage hypnosis, but when you're going to a show, do you say, hey, okay, I need my hotel room covered as well, or I need the flight covered as well? And
I do shows in that really fall into two major categories with respect to being able to answer this question. One of them are I get booked for a theater show, we're negotiating a price, and I'm putting in travel and lodging there. The other type of show that I often will do are the fundraiser shows. These make up more than half of the shows that I do. And the way that I do it, and I'm not telling anybody to do it this way because it has me bearing a great deal of risk a lot of times, is that I have a no risk pricing structure for these shows. So the only risk that an organization that is going to have in booking me is whatever the cost of the venue and staffing the show to get people in the door and everything like that might be. And a lot of times, because I'm doing a lot of school shows, that auditorium's in the school, that cost is zero. So I'm doing a split of ticket sales. I'm doing a split of sponsorships. And I control the sponsorships and I solicit the sponsorships, and my team does, even if it's in, the other side of the country. So the one good thing is that kind of built into my ability to make sure that, hey, there needs to be X $1,000 worth of sponsorships for this show just to make sure I can get there and back and be at a minimum break even. So some of that I've taken the control into my own hands. But if it's a fundraiser show, the travel expense, for the most part, I would say if somebody wants to book me to do one internationally, I'm going to make them pay for my flights up front. But that'd probably be the only exception to that rule right there. A lot of it comes into, really looking at it, and a break-even point comes into, are you flying and willing to fly on budget airlines, in coach, in whatever seat that they're going to give you, or do you need to be putting your Gucci tie on, and how am I going to wear this Gucci tie back with the people? I need to be sitting up front. Well, you're talking about really escalating the costs if you want to sit business or first class or otherwise.
Yeah. I would only fly the budget for Grant. If I had to go to Grant's event, Spirit was the only airline.
I'm noting that down. There we go.
I'm like, okay, that's the only airline going. I'll take it.
Sorry to interrupt on that, but there's something to that as well. I've done good flights and I've done terrible flights. And sometimes when I've booked cheap flights, at the time when the flight has been cancelled and I'm sat on the floor in an airport for 12 hours, I kind of want, I wish I'd have spent the extra couple of $100 to get a good airline and to get good seats. So sometimes, was it buy cheap, buy twice? It's, budget airlines are budget airlines for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're absolutely. You know what? I flew Delta and still wound up in Amsterdam for like 12 hours. So that's okay. Now, switching this, because all three of us do this. It's you guys are doubled up, not only stage hypnosis, but you're doing this as well. I went in and again, I asked Chat GPT to give me a reference on annual travel costs for hypnotherapists going to a conference. Let me see if I can find it. So it basically came up to, is that the one I want right there? I'm on the other screen. I'm on the other monitor, guys. Just bear with me for a moment. So this is the estimated annual travel expense for hypnotherapists. And why are we saying this? Because in a moment, I'm going to talk about some of the things that I do, and I'm going to ask Grant, and Joe Beth some of the things that it says here. Again, with Chat GPT, there is no readily available industry-wide survey reporting on how much the average hypnotherapist spends on travel annually. However, it can approach the question by estimating, and I did ask it to estimate to the closest ability as it could, related expenses, categories, and typical continuing education CE patterns for the cost of hypnotherapists. And it came back with generally between, just for CE opportunities, no travel involved, $500 to $2,000. And I say that's within the range. I mean, you see a lot of CE programs out there at that cost rate. So, and that's online, and you're not going anywhere. You're just doing it online, or maybe you're driving to a local area to, be part of this event. But when we start to include travel, it goes up from, where is it at? 1,500 to 2,000. Typically, the self-employed hypnotherapist, says here, has reported spending $1,000 to $3,000 per event based on where it's at. And yeah. So, we're scrolling because there's Amanda. She says, sounds accurate. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. And you guys do that too. I do that. We go to, conferences. We go to events. We put on conferences. I know that Grant is the head of the Performing Hypnosis Summit in Las Vegas, Nevada. There is the QR code. Tickets and speaker presenters are open. I have no shame. Shameless plug there for the Performing Hypnosis Summit. So yeah, but
these are essential expenses. So, I want my dentist to be going to conferences and trainings and networking events and growing and expanding. I want my mechanic to be doing the same. I want him to know the latest things that are happening in the world of car engines. If anyone that's serious about any business should be out there continuing to develop, continue to reinvest in their business and reinvest in their skills as well. It's when I encounter a hypnotherapist that tells me about their qualifications, but when it comes to the fact of, are they getting involved in the community? Are they going to conferences? Are they going to other trainings? When they're not doing those things, that's when alarm bells sound to me, because you live in an echo chamber then, where you don't see the investment of spending that money on yourself. You see going to these conferences as like a fun expense or like a holiday or a break. It's not. See it as a real investment in your business. And that's any serious professional is always going to reinvest.
So, yeah.
I personally buy into the why not both philosophy when it comes to seeing this as a professional endeavor and seeing this as kind of a holiday/vacation.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Most of these are in destinations that allow you to do that. But, you're exactly right. And being on the stage side of things, I only get to see through colleagues of mine that are on the therapy and clinical side of things, how many more conferences and opportunities to travel and learn that they have over us entertainment folk. We've got 4 a year that currently in the States that cover us entertainment folk with any sort of significance. PHS, of course, Michigan, Heartland, and HypnoThoughts. Outside of that, that's kind of the gamut for the entertainment folk. Those also, with the exception of PHS, 3 of those 4 cover the clinical. And then there's probably 10 to 12 more on the clinical side of things. Some of them are regional and otherwise, but nobody's going to look at you and say, "Oh, you're from too far away. We don't want you at our conference." No, they're not doing that. But, there's obviously a market variable of what you're going to learn about on the business side of things that might be specific to that region. But again, you've got to stay sharp. You've got to be if you're doing your job right for your clients in that regard, you need to be on the front end of whatever is new. You find a new way to do something that's going to be exponentially better for your clients. You're not doing your job if you're not seeking that out.
So, absolutely. So, and bringing that up, now after I asked ChatGPT like 3 separate questions, look at me go. I am all about AI today. So, I asked it, I said, I added the annual travel cost for hypnotherapists presenting at a conference. Now we're presenting, as many of us do. And it came back, depending on the conference, airfare, what have you, came back with domestically traveling is $1,000 to $2,500, internationally $2,500 to $5,000, with a total. If you go to 5 or to 7 events or more, you could be into the $10,000 to $20,000 range spending money. And I will say that I did go to 7 conferences. I didn't come anywhere near $10,000 on travel. So, and how I do that, and here's how we start breaking. And I'm going to put this on one of the group pages. I added a conference travel budget worksheet so that, as this series goes on, hopefully we're going to be able to save money, or save individuals money, time, effort, headaches, frustrations in traveling to these events. Because I agree with Grant. I agree with Joe Beth. It's an investment in yourself. You can't just sit back on your laurels and use the same technique you were using 12 years ago, 13 years ago when you first got out of school. You've got to evolve. I don't know about you guys. I belong to a travel site. I know a lot of people go, travel site. Expedia. I belong to Expedia. And one of the things I get from that is it used to be points, but now it's key cash. They switched it over. I think it's the same kind of thing, but key cash. But the more I use it, the more I scale up. I mean, I started at blue and I'm now at platinum. I'm important, man. Platinum. So, but some of my friends will be like, how did you get that flight for so cheap? Well, because I've scheduled those out and I'm at the platinum tier, I'm getting bigger discounts, 30, 40, 45% sometimes on travel. I went to Las Vegas one year. I think it was the last year we went to Hypnothoughts. I got into a hotel and it was, I don't know how this happened, but it was like the first 2 people in that room were $5 a person for the entire time. And then, of course, I paid a regular rate for my room. So that was a huge savings because I get these special sales at the platinum level. So that's one of the things. And I know it's like, well, Dan, you've got to travel so much, but you don't, because here's the other thing. Trip elements. Everything I do associated with that conference is a trip element. I get a hotel room. That's a trip element. I book a flight. That's a trip element. I get a car. That's a trip element. I do a show. That's a trip element. So in one conference, I can book 5, 6 things. I've got 7 trip elements. And now we're off to the races. So that's one of the things I do. The other thing that I do is I pay for them throughout the year. I don't do it. I don't wait till the last minute, book it, and then pay that top tier dollar. Like, I know I'm going to the summit, so I'm going to start planning that trip in October, and that's going to start with the flight, then the hotel, then the vendor space I'm going to get at the conference, and so on and so forth. So don't forget to add the cost of Keurig and teapots. We must have some proper Yorkshire tea. Yes,
absolutely.
Man.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Another good tip is build a relationship with a travel agent. There's lots of independent travel agents out there now. So if you know that you're going to be doing 2 or 3 conferences this next year and probably a vacation as well, build that relationship with them. They'll be able to shop around and get you some deals. They might not be able to get you a cheaper price, but they might be able to get you a better flight or something as an upgrade. Yeah. But most importantly, you can kind of go, right, I'm going away here. I need a hotel. I need flights. I need car hire. They can sort it. And you can pay for that. Go, do you know what? I'll pay a deposit, and then you can pay that off of installments, and you can spread that cost throughout the year when it comes to that. When you leave things to the last minute, and bearing in mind, this is a do as I do, not as I say type thing. I'm a last minute guy. Do you know what I mean? But if you're a last minute guy, you're going to pay a premium, and you have to pay it now. So if you're a hypnotherapist or a stage hypnotist and you're just starting to do these things, you're going to pay the most money for it. If you can spread that cost out, it's going to be great. And travel agents, a good independent travel agent, will help you with that.
And all of these, whether it's through an independent travel agent, whether you're working through a site like Dan's doing or otherwise, you're still having these things booked through that specific airline, through that specific hotel chain, and otherwise. So I mentioned earlier using credit cards that were branded to accumulate points. That may or may not be an option if you're booking directly through an Expedia or through a travel agent. However, all of these hotel chains and airlines have their own reward programs, which is where the credit cards dump the points, but you don't necessarily need to use the credit card to be signed up for those. Those are free. So the ability for you to go, and I'll just use Southwest as an example. Let's say I booked through Expedia, which I don't think you can do. I don't think that they service Southwest, but or a travel agent. I can take that confirmation number after the flight, log into my account and say, here, I went on this trip, and it's going to give me those points. And if I put them on a credit card, then I've already gotten points for that. And if Expedia is doing a thing or whatever the thing is that gives you that accumulated, hey, the more things I book, the more perks I get, you can double and triple dip on some of this stuff. And you need to see what's out there. Most of these programs are absolutely free to sign up. So even if you're not using them but once, twice, 3 times a year, they're still there. And it's not like you're paying to sign up for it. You're double, triple dip because it's there.
Yeah. The loyalty programs and the points things are such a great hack. So like my car rental Enterprise, it's both UK and US. The past couple of times I've been to the US, it's not cost me anything to hire a vehicle. I just use my points that have accumulated over the years, and those points stay there for years. So it's, it does really work well.
Yeah. One thing I will say is, when you're going to these events, and we're talking about hotels, and I know that Heather likes to pick the hotels when we go out there to the Hypnothoughts, and we would not always stay at the hotel that Hypnothoughts had, even though they had a great rate. She wanted to stay at other hotels, so we compromised. We stayed at the hotel she wanted to. But I will say, most like the Summit, you guys got a really great rate on your room. Before you try to book a room through see what that conference is, their rate is. It's probably going to be a lot less. That's another way to save money. And it will, in the long run, save you, because now the conference has shown that they can fill rooms and so on and so forth. They can take that and use that as a negotiating tactic to get that rate even lower the following year or the year after that. So check that before you book a room, because I've had people come out to the Michigan and like, oh yeah, I got a hotel room. It's like, what, did you use the group code? There was a group code. And I know you've said similar things, Grant. Like, did you use a group code? There was a group code. Yeah. But yeah, that's another way to save money. I know that most of the hotels, I will say this, I think the Gold Coast had little refrigerators in all the rooms. So, you could stock some food in there and you wouldn't have to pay so much down the road for food. That's another tip. The rooms at the conference in Michigan have little refrigerators in the room, so you can put stuff in there. That's another savings that you can say, because you don't have to go out and spend money on this great big exorbitant lunch per se in an area you're at. But, I wanted to throw that out there to say, hey, remember to use, if they have a group code, ask about it, check it. You're going to get a good hotel room rate. And oh my goodness, did I just put the PHS thing up again?
Let's talk about, you mentioned Hypnothoughts, PHS. the Michigan Conference. What do all three of these have in common?
So
those hotels are associated with casinos. I'm not
yes.
going to encourage gambling here, but I'm going to give the if you do caveats. Stay on the property of the conference, gamble at that hotel. Don't bounce all around Vegas, spreading your money thin to all these different properties. Okay, do it where you are, because if you use their card, the likelihood of you getting a drastically discounted rate. Friday, I'm flying out to Vegas for Magic Live. And I pulled up my cost, and Magic Live is at the Orleans, which is where PHS was, the Gold Coast, which is where PHS was last year because of renovations at the Orleans, and will be next year, all part of the same casino family. So learn this stuff. And again, I'm not encouraging the gambling, but if you do, learn this. Know who they are all affiliated with, because I'm going to give you full disclosure, my cost for my hotel room next week or later this week for Magic Live. Sunday, August 3rd, complimentary. Monday, August 4th, complimentary. Tuesday, August 5th. Wednesday, August 6th, complimentary.
Wow.
It's a pretty damn good price. And when I booked and stay at PHS in January through the same family of casinos, the price is going to probably be very similar. So it's kind of an offshoot of using points. That the points are just accumulated in a different way. And again, that's not for everybody. But if you're in that mix, if you're staying there, the HTL's at the Sahara and, Greektown, I don't even know. I never leave the campus a lot of times. But, I took people through it after, one night after all of everything was over at the Michigan Conference last year, and said, look, let's go win some money. And we went and we did it, and talked to the people that I went around with. They'll tell you the story. It was fun. But if I pulled up what it's going to cost me to stay at the conference at Michigan this year, it's going to look very similar to that. I think I'm paying for one of the nights, but two of the nights are complimentary. So it doesn't, you're not necessarily going to always get everything for free, but you're going to get big breaks if you are a gambler. Again, I'm not encouraging this for a non-gambler or anything like that, but if you are, make sure you're just aware of who's connected to who. Use those cards, and it's there. Take advantage of it.
So when you won the money, was that Black 17?
That's a Grant story.
Yeah. So, it is. I've seen him do it twice. It's like I was a Black 17.
I think I'm going to lose everything the next time I do that, just because there's so much. There's no way it's going to come in again. And so, the next, I think Brian was going to remortgage his house next time and put it on 17 Black. And it's like, don't do it, Brian, because it will not work.
Just simmer down now, Brian. So, but and we're going to continue these series, and hopefully one of our next guests will be coming from Expedia, the company that I work with. I've reached out to them to see how we're going to manage some of the new things, because Judge and I keep calling you Judge. It's Joe Beth. I don't know. It's like your nickname. It's your show name. And I'm going to ask Grant about this as we're coming up on time. Delta Airlines is doing something, and there's some concern about it. AI pricing, fair pricing. They're looking at, it's going to be looking at your behavior patterns about what you buy, what you don't buy, and then pricing it out through that. And they've been using it like 1%. Now they want to take it up to 3%, eventually to 20%. I will use myself as an example, and then I'll ask you guys. I do not fly first class. I rarely fly Comfort Plus. I'm a basic dude. If I'm traveling the 4 hours to Vegas, which is like one of the longer flights, I will just do the economy. I mean, I have no problem being in zone 8, right? So, and if I do run into something where I'm going to be doing a lot, I will spend a little bit of extra money to get the refundable flight, but most of the time I'm just a basic dude. I don't, buy the seat. I don't go in and do the seat mapping unless I've got Heather coming with me, my business partner, and maybe my cameraman. That's the only time, so that we're all together and I don't lose anyone. And by anyone, I mean Heather, because not a master traveler. And neither is my cameraman, by the way. So I'm just, you wonder, hey, somebody put this up. Caspin 09. Hello, Caspin. So yeah, that's me. And I also get the media bag because I have my press credentials. The magazine is credentialed. I made sure that was authentic. It's a real magazine that we're credentialed. So if I've got 2 big bags of media gear going with me out to, like, say, the Performing Hypnosis Summit at the Gold Coast in Las Vegas, January 23rd. So I have no shame, Grant.
I love it. I love it.
$50 a bag. And these are 200-pound bags. So, because I've got everything coming with me, lighting and cameras and backdrops and the desk and the chairs and the microphones, all that stuff comes with me. So that's another way to save money, because I'm not saying that I've snuck clothes in there, but now I'm concerned about that. What does that mean, with Delta doing that? Because it's really some of the things that they're talking about is like, oh, it's going to favor, it's going to be great for the airline. They're wondering how great it's going to be for the consumer when this thing starts trying to upsell you every 20 minutes. And that's just, what's your opinion on that, guys?
I think corporations are always going to try and find the most efficient way to make you part with your hard-earned money. And so it may be that there'll be a benefit on one level, but then on some other level, there's going to be a sacrifice. And again, it's always, it may be that through this AI, they can introduce cheaper seats, maybe ones where you stood up for all the flight, but there's got to be different levels. I remember when all flights were pretty much amazing. You had all of this leg room, the food was fantastic, it was, and now, like with budget airlines, the space that you physically have to sit in is not great at all. So it makes you want to spend that extra money. So I think when AI gets involved, it is going to be what is the most efficient for the finances of the business, not what's best for me and you. And that's the world. You got to accept that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely, I don't know how much of it's AI driven, but on the Southwest side of things, all of the changes that they're making, the bags don't automatically fly free. You have to be certain status levels, which means that you've spent money with them or through their credit card to get there. All of these other things that are not, they used to also have this open seating policy, which through the end of this year still exists. That's going away. It's going to introduce some seats with better leg room, but they're going to cost more money, and they might not even be there if you don't have the status by the time you go around to book. So they're never things that are really going to be financially benefiting the consumer. It's always going to be if you want more, you got to pay more. Is the value there? That's up to you to determine whether or not it's worth it to not be standing on that flight, or because it'll get there. We know.
Oh yeah.
We're not mind readers or fortune tellers, but I think that there's a great deal of confidence that as long as within safety standards, the FAA is going to allow something like that, we'll see it in our lifetime.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't think it makes too much difference if you go into a mountain whether you stood up or sat down.
I will pay a little more for a seat. I will honestly do that. I will say that Delta's AI pricing has already got the attention of the House and the Senate here in the States. They're already going, what are you doing? So just to make sure. And I do want to hopefully get them on from Expedia to say, what's that going to mean to the third-party pricing, like Expedia, Priceline, your travel agent? How's that going to affect them now? Are they going to be losing the ability to negotiate? Are they going to, is it, you used to be able to negotiate as a travel agent, but now it's just this and that's it. So you got to wonder about that. But I think that's coming up on our time. We actually went over our time. This was a good show, good discussion. And we're going to talk about it more as the time comes on. And I'm going to be I'm actually going to do this worksheet up, and I'm going to fill it out throughout the year and see how much money I save, if any. And I'll get back to you guys on that. But I'll also be putting it up on the page here. So, and I think this is going to be an article in the magazine talking about this kind of thing, because a lot of people ask me, Dan, how do you do it? Well, we've given you some of the tips and tricks that we use to save money. So I want to thank Joe Beth Bowers and the always amazing Grant Saunders for being here today. So, hey, hope you guys